Hello, my name is Jonas Turner and I will extremely briefly tell you about the sound design and music composing that I make for Go Mecha Ball. Everything you see or hear in this video is still work in progress and not necessarily representative of the final quality of the game. I'll be making another full-length making-of documentary after the game is done, as there is so much more to talk about than I have the time for in this video. So consider this video as a trailer for it. First off, my initial thinking is to get a feel for the player's actions and then make the enemy sounds, so we get a loop of action, response, action happening. And then I would start filling the soundscape from there. Let's look at some gameplay first, without any audio. Let's add player sounds in. Let's add enemy sounds in. Let's add material sounds in. Let's add all of the rest of the sound effects in. Let's add music in. As you may have noticed, this is a video game where we use procedural animations, so limbs can twist and turn in many various and surprising ways. So that affects my designs quite a lot, as I want the sounds to follow whatever is happening dynamically. And a huge part of that is having the actual sounds that get triggered to be interesting and varied. The less repetition there is, the more natural it will feel. So let's jump into Fmod Studio and I'll show you how it all works. Let's start by looking at the player's transformation sounds and movement. Here are the sounds for the player's transformations from mech to a ball and from ball to a mech. As you can see, there are sounds for the limbs appearing and disappearing, limbs locking into place, as well as sounds for the indication of the two states. Let's start with the transforming into a mech. As you can see, there are separate pools of sounds that randomize each time the event is triggered to make the sound feel different yet similar each time it plays. This is the basic basis of almost all of the sounds within Go Mecha Ball. Next up, transforming into a ball. This one is slightly different with the consistent button click sound, as this one you need to click to happen as opposed to the mech transform, which happens after you let go of the button. It might look like a minor detail, but makes a huge difference in practice, as it gives some consistent feedback for the button press for when you play the game. From here, let's look into the player movement. We have the body sound of a footstep. This is the sound that plays from the mech, and in addition to this, we have impacts from different materials that play on top. We also have sounds for the feet moving downwards or upwards. In ball mode, we roll around as a ball. That I have also split into two separate interactions. One being the motor of the player and the other being the material that you roll on top of. So let's look at the motor first. we have the load parameter, which is tied to the player's movement speed. I have cut it into two sets of sounds, ones to represent the load of the motor and the others to represent the idling of the motor. For the player turning, we also have the turn parameter. Then we also have something called ball fire, which indicates a state where the player has reached maximum speed and thus can heavily collide with enemies and the environment. Lastly, we have a parameter called ball pipe, which gets set when the player is inside various environmental things where it doesn't make sense we hear the motor. So it acts as a kind of soft mute in a sense. I'll quickly show you an example of rolling on top of a metal hollow material. As you can see, we have 3 loops of different velocities that get automated via a parameter, which is tied to the speed of whatever is rolling on top of the material. Let's look into enemies real quick. Upon seeing the player to indicate that they are aware of your presence, they will let out a tiny aggro sound. And upon attacking, they have a tiny attack anticipation sound to indicate that they are about to attack. Here I use a attack anticipation tone that is shared between all the enemies. There are 2 different kinds of attack anticipation tones. Ones that you can interrupt and ones that you cannot interrupt. Then, of course, we have the enemies attacking, as well as enemies moving in whatever fashion they might do that. Some have feet, some have wheels, some float about, some roll around like a ball, some have motors, and so on and so on and so on. You can dash onto enemies to stun and falter them, and they will announce their states accordingly. Also, if the enemies find themselves in a pickle, like being launched into the air, they'll do a little yell too. When designing the sounds for the enemies, I wanted them to feel tangible and somewhat realistic. So, after I had made their vocals with synthesizers and edited them to fit their various timings and actions, I would then route the sounds out of my sound software into the physical realm via a little speaker, and I would place that inside various metal boxes and stuff, with which I would try to replicate the enemy a bit in the real world, and I would record that with a microphone, essentially to try and make it a little less synthesizer-like and a bit more realistic. The music in Go Mecha Ball is somewhat generative as well as interactive. Let's have a quick look into it inside FMod Studio. Here you can see all the separate instrument sets. We have everything from bass, drums, chords, bubbles, transition effects and so on to instruments behind parameters such as lead melodies to indicate your combo status. A layer to indicate that you are at maximum combo status. Player rolling as a ball. Player health status. Player taking damage. Player jumping into the air. Player death. Enemy death. Music glitching when nearby glitched enemies. Arena cleared. Level complete. Alright Alright dear viewers, I hope you got a decent overview over the soundscape of Go Mecha Ball. Please do follow the game on social media, as well as wishlist the game on Steam. Thank you so much if you do so.